All right, all right. Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Tonight I am joined by Joshua Smith, host of Break the Cycle podcast and vice chair of the National Libertarian Party. How you doing tonight, Josh?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm stoked to be here. I'm glad we can make it work. Sorry I had to push it back an hour, but I
No
appreciate you being
worries.
accommodating. It means a lot to me.
Well, it's important to me that dads spend time with their kids.
Yeah, and I have
So,
a lot. I have a lot of them. So
hey, nothing wrong with that.
that's probably the hardest thing for me as a father is trying to split up my time between all my children. That's the
Oh, I
hardest. That's the
bet.
hardest part for sure.
And how many kids do you have now?
So we have 6 in the house. I have my 18-year-old daughter that just moved out recently with my 2 grandchildren. So I have 2 grandchildren as well, and then I have 1 son that doesn't live with me, unfortunately. But hoping to rectify that soonish. So
Man, that's a full house.
yeah, it's a lot, dude. Thankfully, we've been blessed we were able to get a really nice big house that accommodates all the kids and got a ton of room for them. And there's a pond in the backyard and stuff. It's pretty cool. So they're happy and they enjoy their big house. And I'm stressed out trying to pay for it, but here we are.
Yeah, dad life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you kind of want to just introduce yourself just a little bit more? First time being on the show.
Sure.
Just usually my audience are actually pretty newer to a lot of these ideas of liberty, and some are libertarians. I try to balance, between a show for people who are in the know and also a show for people who are not in the know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been a liberty activist in one form or another since about 2007. For those who don't know who I am, I was in the military. I joined right after 9/11 at 18 years old. Thinking I was going to be heroic and patriotic and go and defend my country from the evil terrorists. And within I don't know, within 7 months, I was in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf on a ship that was carrying out a thing called the Shock and Awe campaign, where they basically dropped 100 billion tons of ordnance on Baghdad, and I was a part of that. And I remember being this young kid and saying to myself, like, "Wow, Baghdad's like a big city. Like, I'm from Oakland, and I'm like, this is a big city that like people live in with cars and jobs and goals and aspirations, and there's family dogs and kids, and it really jaded me on this whole war because I was like, well, I thought we were going to fight Afghan nationals via Pakistan or Saudi nationals via Pakistan or whatever it was that had attacked my countrymen. And so I just remember being like, there's no weapons of mass destruction here. This is really just a terrible thing that we're doing. It was very obvious to me at a young age, being a part of this, that it was a corrupted mission. And so when I got back home, I was extremely jaded on what I now, affectionately refer to as the military industrial complex. Of course, I didn't use that term back then. I didn't even know what that meant. And so I got out of the military 2005, and I was a Republican. I was a registered Republican. I had never voted. I've kind of always been like, voting doesn't really make a difference kind of guy, most of my life, even before, but I was a Republican. And of course, I take it back. I never voted for anything on a grand scale. I would go down and vote, for something local and measures that would come up and stuff like that. But, and so I was, not a George Bush fan. Obviously, I had just gone and fought a war. In fact, George Bush declared war when we were in the Persian Gulf, when we were in the middle of the Gulf. And so I saw this Republican Party that was not anti-war. This was the beginning. This was the Bush era. This was the McCain era. This was, these were not anti-war conservatives. They were conserving nothing. They were conserving no traditions. And I felt like the party was leaving me until I found this great man that I see on my shirt, that you see on my shirt tonight, that says it didn't have to be this way. About 2007, I found Ron Paul, and he was speaking to my soul, man. You know what I mean? That guy, he was talking about how we're creating all these conflicts overseas, and how the monetary system in the United States was crippling normal people, and it was just really spoke to me, and so I was like, I need to find out more about this guy. And so I worked on Ron Paul's campaign in 2008. diehard Ron Paul supporter, good friend. I mean, the guy's been a friend to me. He endorsed me for national chairman 2 years ago when I ran in 2020 for national chairman of the Libertarian Party. And so, I spent some time there. I watched the Republican Party just absolutely blackball this guy. I watched the media blackball this guy. And to me, I'm like, this guy's speaking the truth. He's saying all the things that conservatives should want to do if they want to conserve, these traditions and the way of life and make America great again or whatever it stupid slogan these politicians are coming up with this week. He was the one actually saying the things. And when you go back and look at his record, he was the one actually saying the things for a generation, and so I wasn't going to stay with the Libertarian or with the Republican Party anymore. There was just no way for me to be a principled human being and continue to work with the Republicans. They just didn't have my interests at heart. And so I left 2010, joined the Libertarian Party briefly. And I basically was like a hyped up activist. I'd worked on Ron Paul's campaign in California. And I was like, where do you guys need me? Show me where to go. And they just stonewalled me. I mean, I got no return emails, nothing. So I stopped working with, stopped being a member of the Libertarian Party like 3 months after I started paying dues. And then in 2015 and 2016, I was watching the lead up to the shit show, right? National politics was just absolutely disgusting. It was crazy for me to watch all this stuff. There's no way I was going to be a Trump guy. I knew, I grew up watching Trump on Lifestyles and the Rich and Famous, dude. Like, anybody who bought the fact that he was a conservative is a fucking idiot. Absolute idiot. The guy's been a New York liberal my entire life. And so I was like, no way, dude, this guy's lying to everybody. He's using false populism to try and hype up his base. He's not going to do any of this shit. And then on the other side of that was another Clinton. And, I grew up in the Clinton era too. And I remember how fucking bad it was for everybody. And so there was no way I wanted to be a part of any of that. So I was like, well, I'll go check out the Libertarian Party and see what they're doing. At that time, I found Nick Sarwark. He was the first person I found in the party. And he was great.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was great, dude. I was like a Nick Sarwark fanboy, dude. Especially like during the beginnings of the Gary Johnson campaign. At the time, I knew very little about Bill Weld, but once I found out who Bill Weld was, I didn't work with the GJ campaign anymore. But I had found Nick, and I was like, man, this guy's edgy. He's going up on stage saying your fucking tears are delicious and your parties will die. And I'm like, yeah, dude, this guy's awesome. And then like a week later, he's attacking Tom Woods and Eric July and fucking who else? He went at Scott Horton and all these great like thinkers.
Ron Paul.
Yeah, Ron Paul and all these great people that like really, turned me into who I am today, right? And so I was like, fuck this guy. This was 2016, 2017. And I had become a region rep for the Libertarian Party of Washington at the time. I lived in Southern Washington. And so I started calling all the big name people that I knew. And I'm like, yo, you got to run for chair of this party and get this guy the fuck out of here. He is ruining the name of libertarianism nationwide. There's no doubt. And we get those kind of emails all the time, right? Like as a national leadership team, you're always getting emails. You guys are destroying the name of libertarianism. You're doing this, you're doing that. But he didn't know who the fuck I was. When I set my mind out to do something, like it's going to happen. And so I started calling these people. You're like, you're crazy, man. He's a 2-term chair. He's the most popular chair the party's ever had. You're crazy. No one's going to run against that guy. I said, all right, fuck it. I'll do it. And so this is like 2018. No one knew who the hell I was. I didn't have the show. I was doing like a small publication called Think Liberty with some friends. And so I put out an intent to run statement. It's kind of like a challenge to the status quo of the party, not thinking it would go anywhere, but it was viewed over 16,000 times on the first week. And I was the new challenger, and I went to 28 states that year. I spoke behind Ron Paul at the Omaha Roads to Freedom Convention. I got to do all this great shit, dude. I was never a public speaker. I never did any of that. I had to go on my tour, like I had to go around and teach myself to not say bro to people like on stage and stuff. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like a skater kid, surfer kid from California, right? And so I was like, I can't go up on a stage and give a speech and be like, yo, bros, listen, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are hella whack right now. We need to fix our marketing. And so I like actually had to teach myself public speaking, like on the road. And so I ran against them. I got like, surprisingly, I think I got like 22% of the vote or something like that at the national convention in 2018 in New Orleans, but I did end up becoming an at-large representative. So I spent that term as an at-large. And then in 2020, I tried to get some people to run again. No one wanted to run. They were going to run Joe Bishop Henchman. And I was like, fuck that, I'll run. So I ran again. And he just barely beat me. I mean, it was really, really close. Less than 100 votes, I think. So I became an at-large again. I did 2 terms of at-large. Then I ran for vice chair this term and won after like 4 rounds of voting. I became the new vice chair of the party. And then, of course, I've had the show since March of 2020. I think March 3rd was our first show. March of 2021. Yeah, 2021. And we've done great things. The show's, I had a million views and uploads in my first year, and it's been a really great show, a really positive experience. Of course, I'm trying my very hardest not to pigeonhole myself into libertarian commentary. I think that the libertarian cause is really important. Don't get me wrong, but I think that a lot of libertarian media people, they don't realize that if we're only pigeonholing ourselves to libertarian media and guests, then we're not making a difference. We're not speaking to people who don't already agree with us. And so I've really tried to kind of branch out, especially over the last year. I've had some really cool names on. Of course, I had Andrew Bogut, who won the NBA Finals on the show. I've had actors. I had you guys may know Gary Plache, the gentleman who shot his child's molester in the head on national television. I had his son Jody on the show, who wrote a book called Why Gary Why. I've done a lot of really cool shows, man. And so it's been an interesting ride. And I don't know that if I hadn't have run for chair and vice chair that I would have the platform that I have now, but I appreciate it. And I'm going to use it for all the good that I can in this world, man.
That's awesome. Everyone, I highly recommend going and subscribing and going and following what Josh does. His show Break the Cycle is definitely instrumental in actually this show existing in the first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally.
Nice,
I used to work in a beer warehouse, and I would force everyone in the warehouse. I would take a little JBL speaker I had, throw it up on my automatic like forklift jack, and make everyone listen to your show.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks,
just spreading the message of liberty within the warehouse, and then I led a mask rebellion, and then I got fired.
Yeah, that'll happen, dude. I did the Vax rebellion at my work, and thankfully it worked out for us. But I did lead the rebellion entirely because they were like, "Let's do a religious exemption. Let's do this." I'm like, "No, fuck that, dude. We don't need to do that. We shouldn't have to lie to these people. We should be able to say, no, I don't want to put this in my body. I'm sorry." And that should be the end of it. And so they were like, yeah, you're right. So we all did that. And they came to us 3 days before we were supposed to be walked out of the building and said, "Hey, we're going to end the mandate." I'm like, yeah, that's what we thought.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. Because we were forced to wear masks, but we were order selectors. And so, I'm moving 2,000 cases of beer a day.
Yeah,
like
that,
we're practically, athletes at that point, running, like carrying massive amounts of beer and water and all this other stuff. And you expect us to like wear masks. There's only 12 of us in the entire building, and we're always at least like 10 feet away from each other. So it just didn't make sense. It was harming production.
Sorry.
And so I said no. And then, courage is contagious. And so it kind of just spread.
And then they fired you.
Yeah, I mean, they fired me for something else, but I was on the chopping block,
Oh yeah, they were looking for a reason.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. They were looking for a reason. It sucks, dude. It's corporate fascism. I mean, 100%. And it's so funny because we spent all these years listening to the left talk about fascism. Fascism. You're all fascists. Excuse me. You're all fascists and this and that and this and that. And then it was like when the real corporate fascism rolled up to our fucking doors and our jobs and our livelihoods and our children, they were like, "Oh yeah, yay, do it." It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Yeah, do it, or we want to put you in camps.
Yeah. It was mind blowing to me that it was like the fascism's actually here now, and you guys aren't saying a fucking word. What? Oh, and you are supportive of the actual fascism. Bingo. That's what I've been telling you guys for years. You're the fascists. I knew it.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I kind of want to get into just a little bit, just for people who don't know, it seems like there's a lot of people within the Loser Brigade that just like attack you for just like nonsense.
Fucking
Just
hate me, dude.
pure nonsense.
Yeah.
And I don't see that it's deserved. Obviously, I'm sure there's stuff that we could find that we disagree on. You know,
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
I don't agree with everyone. I don't even agree with myself on a lot of things, you know? So, but do you kind of want to just like run through some of that?
Sure. Yeah. Look, here's the thing, man. You got to remember that so like, if you think about the Mises Caucus, right? When I started with the Mises Caucus, it was like 55 guys in a Facebook group saying, we're going to take over this entire political party. Okay.
Jeez.
And you know, the meme, like first they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win or whatever.
Yeah.
That was like the real time what happened with us, right? Like we started out 55 guys in a Facebook group talking shit. Then all of a sudden I'm running for chair. I'm traveling all over the country. I'm getting delegates. I'm getting people on board. I'm bringing people to conventions. I'm doing shows left and right with other shows, other platforms. I'm on Tom Woods and all this shit that I never thought I'd do in my life, you know? And in 4 years, 2018 to 2022, we took over the whole entire fucking party. Like 80% of the state parties, the entire national committee, all the subcommittees. We ran candidates all over the country. We brought in thousands and thousands of new members that were hyped up, activists ready to take over. And you have to understand that like politics is a dirty, shitty, ugly fucking place, dude. Like it's gross. Like I hate it.
It is.
I fucking hate it. And I've told a lot of people this, like, you know, 90% of the people that I've met in politics are absolute shitbags, including the people that were like friendly to me. You know what I mean? And so you have to understand that these people have had this political party for years that has always been stagnant and has never actually challenged the status quo, but it gives them a sense of purpose, right? It gives them their own little club that they're members of, and they're, you know, vice chairs and county chairs and state chairs and all these cool little hats and titles that don't mean a fucking thing at the end of the day. They don't mean shit, right? But I was threatening that. You know what I mean? Like I was threatening that status quo. And it's the same thing if we ever get big enough to challenge the two-party system in America. Oh boy, you better be fucking ready, dude. People are going to die. People are going to die. There's no doubt they're going to take some of us out. There's no doubt that they're going to try to plant child porn or do some kind of dumb shit and fuck your world up, because that's what they do. They don't want to lose their power. And it wasn't different with these people in this party. It just wasn't. And I can pinpoint the exact time that it all started, and I can put names out and all this shit, dude. And I have in the past. But like I was at the Texas State Convention in 2017. I want to say end of 2017, early 2018. I was at the Texas State Convention. Now, you have to remember, I was running against Nicholas Sarwark, who doesn't like to get his hands dirty. Okay. He has other people do his dirty work. He's very smart. He's a very fucking smart guy, dude. And he will have other people do his dirty work. Well, another person jumped in, Alicia Dern, who is an absolute shitbag, scumbag. But I didn't know this at the time, but she was the one that was running for vice president, who actually stepped down and endorsed Bill Weld and told the delegates to vote for Bill Weld in 2016. She had made a commitment to Austin Peterson to be his vice president, and then she stepped down, endorsed Bill Weld, told everybody to booze that they should vote for Bill Weld. So she hopped in to the chair race, and she had another friend named Angela Fisher Owens, who I thought was friendly with me. We had always been friendly. We had messaged back and forth, talked about Nick, this and that, and this and that, and so Angela comes to me and she's like, "Hey, Alicia wants to work with you to take down Nick." And I was like, "Look, I don't need to do this shit. Like, I don't need to do that. Like, I want to run a fucking clean campaign. I want to win on my own merits. Like, I don't need to play this dirty backroom politics." And boy, was I fucking naive at the time, right? Because like to me, I was like this idealist, like I'm gonna do the right thing here all the time, and nothing's gonna change, and it's gonna be perfect. You're gonna see, watch. So I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. I think that's stupid, but you know, I wish her luck, and I'll see her in the debates or whatever, you know. So I'm sitting in Texas, Yeah, I think I was out at a bar having some drinks with a bunch of libertarians, and I get a text message from Angela Fisher Owens. What's this here? I'm hearing about you sexually harassing a woman at your home state convention in Washington. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, first of all, I had a girlfriend for like 3 years. We were super serious, lived together, all that shit. This is my home state. Okay, like everybody that was at the convention knew me. Everybody was hanging out with me. And she's like, yeah, this woman, Tashina Pascal, who was another person that was running for LNC Spot's wife, she's saying that you said something to her, sexually harassing her at the state convention. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? At the time, I'm still naive, right? I'm like, this has got to be some kind of mistake. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do that. This is just not something that I would do, you know? So I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but this is getting kind of weird, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. So you guys do whatever you got to do. So then they put out a fucking article, dude. Right? Through like the Libertarian Herald or some shit, some fucking publication. They put out an article calling me harasser and all this shit and dropping all these screenshots and stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, those screenshots, this isn't even me. Like, this isn't even my screenshots, right? And so I immediately text messaged this woman, Tashina, who had just donated $250 to my campaign at the time, by the way, through PayPal. Just when all this is going down, she just decides to donate $250 to my campaign, even though I'm a sexual harasser. Yeah, okay, anyways. So I text her, I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? What is this bullshit? And she's like, no, it wasn't you, it was somebody else, but you were there. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? You guys are crazy, right? And so I take all these screenshots that I have that prove this is all bullshit, right? And I put out a fucking another article on the same publication, like basically just smacking these people down to the point of where at the end of all of this, the couple, the campaign, everybody had to come out and make a public apology. They actually made another article making a public apology to me. And that was that. I can pinpoint it to that exact spot, dude. Like, that was the spot where all of a sudden I was like, oh, dude, these people will say whatever the fuck they can. Like, they will say whatever they can. And since then, I've been a sexual harasser, a deadbeat dad, a fucking couch surfer, can't hold a job, beats women. Fuck, I mean, I'm a Nazi. I'm every single thing that these people can throw at me, they've thrown at me. And I've, for the most part, I have been able to completely smack down every single accusation they have ever made about me. Every single one. There was, you know, my son who doesn't live with me, there was a time in college where I got behind in child support years ago, but I got really behind. And so that was the big thing. They're like, oh, he doesn't take care of it. Now we're all caught up. And of course I've been paying for years and years and years. And, but they were still using that against me, even though it was like old shit, you know what I mean? But then, you know, like right before the 2020 debate for national chairman at the convention, I had been trying to get custody of my daughter for 10 years. And at the time she's 15. They got a hold of my daughter, who was in a really bad situation, and literally wrote a letter for her to post in one of the Facebook groups, and said that they would pay her and give her a cell phone and all this shit if she made this statement against me. And it fucking hurt, dude. I'll tell you, like, of all the shit that they did to me, that was the one time where I went up. I was at the convention in Florida, in Orlando. And I said, I walked up to my hotel room and I texted Mike Heiss and I said, yo, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm fucking done with this shit. I can't do it anymore, dude. Like, I've been your guys' racehorse for the last fucking 2.5 years or whatever, but I can't do it anymore. Like, they're literally getting a hold of my family now. You know what I mean? And he came up and I was crying and shit, dude. It was just like, it was hell, dude. You know what I mean? Like, they put me through fucking hell. And he said, you can't quit now, dude. You gotta finish. Just ride this one out right here. This is it. This is we're here already. You've already put all this time into it. Just go do it. That's all right, man. So I went back down there. I did the thing. Ended up getting custody of my daughter finally. October. So that was in July. October, I had full custody of my daughter and her 2 siblings that were going to go to foster care that we didn't make. And so it was kind of like, it was one of those things where my daughter showed up here and she was like, Dad, I'm really sorry about that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I know what situation you were in. We know what situation you were in. We know what situation you were in with your mom. We know you needed the money. We know it's water on the bridge. I don't ever want you to mention it again. I don't care. Like, I love you. I'm happy you're here. Let's start fresh. And so, I never wanted her to make a statement about it. Like I never, like I didn't
Yeah.
want to use her for the same means that they used her. You
Just
know what
more
I mean?
cannon fodder.
Yeah, it's just more bullshit, dude. And so, yeah, we got her, and then we got her little brother and sister too, who we've had for, next October will be 3 years. We've had them all. Of course, my daughter had 2 kids in that time, and her soon to be husband lives here, and he's great, and everything's good. We're happy. We're a happy family up here in Iowa now. But the depths that they would sink to, dude, were so crazy to me, you know. But that's what it all is, dude. That's what it all comes down to. And then, of course, with like a lot of the fakertarians guys, they just can't stand the fact that I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want to say, and I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Like they,
you monster.
Yeah, I quoted the Bible, and they started calling me an anti-Semite and shit. I'm like, really? I'm an anti-Semite now for quoting the Bible? Okay, that's cool. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care what they have to say. But the personal shit was rough, dude. It really ate at me for a long time. Now I don't care because I proved to everybody who was watching that they were liars. You know what I mean? Like, what else do I need to do? They're pieces of shit liars.
See, I was going to bring this up real quick. This was an example of, just for everyone watching, like on change.org of all places.
They finally got over 100. They finally got over 100 signatures.
Yeah, 124. That's it.
What a bunch of fucking losers, dude. How old is that? That came, they put that out like over a year ago too, probably.
Yeah, it was
close, right?
Yeah, let's see.
9 months.
Yep. Started a year ago.
Yeah, they started it a year ago. You got to keep this in mind. They started this a year ago before I won vice chair.
Yeah. And this is just a snapshot. And by the way, just low dirty stuff. Throwing Ryan Dawson under the bus.
Yeah. They really hate Ryan Dawson, dude.
I love Ryan so much. He's great. And so, just to give people kind of an idea, this is just the nonsense game that they play.
They also throw in there that someone once said the N-word that I know.
Oh no!
Which is fucking hilarious because it's like they couldn't pin anything on me, so they just like brought up other people that have done shit. Like I was on a show once where they dropped the N-bomb, and so all of a sudden, like, but I've never. If anybody could find a single second of me saying any of the things that they claim that I've said or any of that shit, please do. I will readily tell you the things that I've said, like repeal the 19th Amendment, and I stand behind that. I stand behind that. It's not, and I don't, and when I say it out of jest, right? Like, yes, repeal the 19th Amendment. In fact, repeal all the amendments. I think the Constitution has been terrible. I think it hasn't stopped anything.
Well, it's not like they pay attention to it or follow it anyways.
Yeah, but they don't care. They don't care that that's what I mean. They only care. They only care that they have their sound bites. And to be truthful and honest with you, a lot of times I give them the sound bites they want on purpose because I know they're going to spread them around, and then my platform's just going to keep growing, dude. So
yeah, exactly.
Thanks for the free marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wanted everyone watching to know that there is this culture within the LP that really is just toxic. And I don't think it's representative of libertarianism. It's not representative of the ideas, but it is this cliquey group of people who, I mean, for the most part, just don't have anything else going on. They don't have any other accomplishments or anything. And they're just taking the shit a little too seriously. And granted, I mean, I've dedicated my life to this party as well. And I obviously, like, I'm willing to die for liberty, not libertarian party. No. And there is, for anyone wanting to get involved, now is a good time. The Mises Caucus has taken over. There is new leadership, including Joshua, but
and way better than me is Angela McArdle. I mean, way better than me. You guys have no idea the work that she does, dude. No idea. She's amazing.
She is a machine.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she is just like a Liberty programmed AI robot at this point.
She's a savage, dude. And the way she handles criticism is like, I'm envious of the way that she handles criticism. I could never handle criticism the way that she does. It's amazing. It's the best.
So one thing I do want to ask you about just the Liberty movement in general, but specifically the Libertarian Party, is about viability, because I know a lot of, the post-libertarian movement is kind of gaining more popularity, I guess.
Who are also my friends. I love those guys too.
Yeah, exactly.
Pete especially. I'm a big fan of Pete Quinones.
Pete's great. Yep. Love his show. Still need to get him on too. But do you do you kind of do you agree with their assessment that the Libertarian Party is not a viable option to actually be able to spread liberty?
It's a rough one, dude. I think in its current state, it has the opportunity to do it better than it ever has. Do I think that it's ever going to work? I don't know. I honestly, I could throw a rock and 50-50 chance. I mean, I honestly don't know, dude. Like, and as somebody who's been in this party a long time and seen it, it's like, yes, we took over the party, right? We got some platforms changed that really badly needed to be changed to be more inclusive of a lot of different libertarian thought. But I still see a lot of the same problems, you know what I mean, that I did before the takeover. And there's still, there's still backroom politicking bullshit. And I just don't know. I don't know that being a part of something like that is ever going to change a two-party system that is all that on a huge scale. You know what I mean? We have to be entirely different than the Republicans and Democrats. And that's radical. I mean, that's a radical thought. We have to be entirely different. Like, we can't be like just different on the principles. We have to have a completely different strategy. We have to have, asymmetric warfare. I mean, we're running on limited resources. We have an ideology that brings all kinds of different people to the table because no one agrees on exactly what liberty is outside of maybe, leave people the fuck alone, right? We all have our own version of it. What I do on my property should be fine as long as I'm not harming anybody or taking their rights, right? So we're all a little different, man, and it's hard. That's the thing that I agree with. These wonderful people like Buck Johnson and Andrew and Tho Bishop, who I love to death as well, and all these guys. They're good friends. Like, I love them to death. I agree with them that it's very fucking hard to get libertarians to coalesce around a libertarian party for those reasons. I do. I sympathize very deeply with that. And I think that I've become more jaded on the whole thing over the last year. And I've talked quite a bit about it on my show too. But I do have faith, like I have some faith, and I've seen some wins. And I've seen numbers that I hadn't seen before in my time with the party, financially and membership wise, and candidates and, exit polls. And I've seen a lot of really good things that give me hope for the Libertarian Party. I don't know that I want to continue to dump and invest all of my entire soul into it like I used to. And I think that might cloud my judgment on this topic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that once DC rolls around next year, I'm done. I'm not going to be on the national committee anymore. I'm not going to run for a position. I want to focus in other areas like media and stuff like that, which I think I'm decent at. And so I think that it will really depend on what the young new blood does. You know what I mean? Because
That's
there's
a fair point.
and when I ran for vice chair this year, it was astounding to me how many people didn't even know who the fuck I was. And I was like, I'm literally the Mises Caucus's Leroy Jenkins, dude. Like, I literally, like no doubt, 100%. I kicked the fucking door down and went running into the party screaming. Like, I was the guy that did that.
That's true.
I put the bullseye on my back, and I took all the arrows, and I run around the country, and for you to be in the caucus and voting for somebody for vice chair and not know who I am, like, you got to be really new, like really, 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 really fucking new, because I carved that space out for us. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be like the conceited, like big-headed guy. I don't think I'm special or anything like that. But motherfucker, I carved that space out for us. I did. I fought and scratched and clawed and bled and cried and fucking gave up everything. I gave up relationships and houses and jobs and fucking everything. So if you don't know who I am, you got to be new. So really depend on what they do. And, my vice chair election was a little disheartening because they were voting for somebody who was not one of us. And we had to fight about that. And, even if I got into the vice chair role and did absolutely nothing for 2 years, absolutely nothing, which, let's be honest, vice chair role is not, it's a lot of doing nothing. It's just a cool hat. And occasionally Angela will text me with something that she needs done, and I try to get it done to the best of my ability. But even if I got in there and did nothing for 2 years, it would be better than what we had before. And it would be better than compromising our principle and putting somebody in there who's compromised on principle.
Agreed.
And so it was it was a little disheartening, but it will really depend on what this new blood does, dude. It will. Are you going to follow in the traditions of the original Mises Caucus? Are you going to run in and say, this is ours now and we're doing the right thing from here on forward? Or are you going to go and do backroom political bullshit deals like they did before and turn it right back into what it was? Because that's not what I fought for. That's not why I did what I did. You know what I mean? That's not why I gave up and sacrificed and tried to carve this niche out for us. I did it because we needed radical reform in the Libertarian Party if it was ever to be successful. And so I hope that they do the right thing. I do. And when my term's up, I'm gonna gracefully bow out and spend some time, much needed time, with my family, and the show, and live a normal life. I put, when it's all said and done, I started this in 2017. When it's all said and done in 2024, it will have been, 7 years straight of this shit. And I'm ready. I'm ready to retire, man.
I hear you. It's so, just real quick, my kind of thoughts on this is that the National Party. So I came into libertarianism, obviously through Ron Paul. Little too young to vote at the time of 2008, but was able to vote 2012. I came into this whole movement knowing that like federal politics was complete bullshit and it was completely corrupt.
Sure.
And so I'm kind of lost on this whole like focus on running federal races. Like we should know we're not going to win. Like it's a PR campaign at best.
Well, I think that's what it's best for, right? Is to get, if you look at like Arkansas, right? The Reverend down there ran against Tom Cotton for U.S. Senate. And he ended up doing really good. He got like 30% of the vote as a libertarian. But the good thing about that campaign was he was invited to do, it was just him. There was no Democrat running. And he got invited to do a debate televised on PBS for the state, which is a huge following, right?
Yeah.
And Tom Cotton refused to do debate, didn't show up. They gave him an hour and 20 minutes to address the state of Arkansas from PBS. Now, I don't agree with him on a lot of things. I don't, I think he's a really nice guy. I think he's doing the best that he can, and he's probably much better for Arkansas than Tom Cotton. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. But he got the opportunity to address the whole state. And that's what we should be trying to do with our federal races. I don't think we're going to win a U.S. Senate candidacy anytime soon, at least. You know what I mean? I think that the biggest focus should always be at the legislature level in the state.
Agreed.
Because that's where you can make the biggest difference. Now, I live in Iowa, and I could tell you that I know of 4 state legislators here that are Mises libertarians that were elected as Republicans. One of them is a good friend of mine. Jeff is amazing. And everybody knows who he is here, even though he's from a little tiny small place in Iowa. And they were able to get a bill passed that outlawed the mask mandates, dude. They were
epic.
Yeah, they were able to get a bill passed that said, the businesses needed to respect the healthcare privacy of their employees. It's fucking great, dude. Like everybody's like, oh, that's not a libertarian. I don't give a shit, dude. What's worse? The state legislators saying that businesses are not allowed to force you to get a vaccine, or businesses being allowed to make you get a vaccine. You tell me which one's worse, because they're both terrible. Yeah. They're both fucking horrible, right? Right. They're both horrible, but one of them is way less horrible. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And so we have full constitutional carry here because of those guys. They're the ones who put that bill through. So like focusing in a place where we can make a huge difference at the legislator level, like that's an important thing to do. And I think, if it were me, if I was the guy who was going around the country still and talking to people, my focus would be on, hey, you seem like you could probably run for a state legislator seat. You should do that. And let me help you figure that out, because it's not that hard. It's really not that fucking hard, dude. You write out a campaign plan, you get 5 or 6 platform points, you get 2 or 3 sub platform points for each one of those points. You focus on what's important to your area, right? You announce, you raise a little bit of money, you do some debates, and hey, you might win. You know what I mean? And if you don't, you got 100,000 people to listen to libertarianism on a bigger scale. That's a good thing. And if it was up to me, we'd have a libertarian in every state house race across the country, and not a single dollar would be spent on federal races. You know what I mean?
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, outside of the presidential election, of course. I think
Yeah.
that the National Party has to run a presidential election to keep ballot access in like 30 states. That's really important. Also, that's our 50 state media tour, right?
Yeah.
And having somebody like Dave Smith would be fantastic. So yeah, man, I agree with you there. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to win any federal races anytime soon, at least. I think that it's a possibility eventually, and it's going to take a lot of culture shift,
Yeah.
lot. And that's something else that the Libertarian Party doesn't like to do, is get involved in the culture wars, right?
Which is a massive mistake.
Yeah, it's a huge fucking mistake. Like, the culture is downwind of politics, downwind of culture. If you can't change the culture, you're never going to change politics. Fucking never. Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's crazy. The whole thing's crazy to me, and it's weird to me to sit here and talk about being like all this political strategy, like I'm a political strategist or something. I have spent a lot of time doing it now, but I absolutely abhor it. Like I hate politics. I think it's disgusting. It's gross.
I never wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Now that I'm here, I'm gonna give it my all, but this isn't what I envisioned doing.
Sure.
So just to kind of change gears a little bit, one thing I wanted to ask you about. So there's this quote from Ron Paul, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but it was, to make a revolution, you need 2 things. You need young people and music. And just to kind of back that up a little bit, there used to be a person here in the state of Utah. His name was Carl Bray, and he was the first chair of the Utah Party. He helped form the national party, and sadly he passed away in the late 70s after a long run of battling the IRS in the courts. But he was a tax rebel.
Nice.
He used to dress up as Paul Revere and ride a horse in downtown Salt Lake, handing out Carl Bray dollars, telling people, yeah, right. He was telling people, like, take my Carl Bray dollar because your Federal Reserve notes are going to be worthless.
And he's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I don't see in the party, is just kind of like these, these cowboys, these like, not that I'm advocating for anybody to go out and commit tax fraud or anything. However, like, where are these rebels? Where's the showmanship? Like, where are these people who are taking it hardcore? So how do we radicalize the youth? How do we influence the youth? College students, the commies are already doing it. And
Sure.
I feel like we need to jump on that.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I used to think I knew the answer to that question. I really did. I was like, yeah, we got to get the youth on board, and I'm just the guy to do it. And now I'm like a month and a half away from turning 40. You know what I mean? And and I just don't know. I think that there's a lot of really good young guys out there doing this game now, that we didn't have before. This was an old man's game for a long time.
Yeah.
It was, and a lot of that has to do with the higher education in the United States, churning out communist after communist after communist purposely. So it was like the older guys who were like, they were the noticers. You know what I mean? They were the ones that are like, oh yeah, man, this whole system is fucked up. But it's because they came from a different generation that was like freer. had much more
Yeah.
freedom and didn't have to depend on the government. This was a lot of these guys, especially the ones that founded this party, like Dave Nolan and Murray Rothbard, certainly. And these guys came from an era that was prior to the welfare state being absolutely astounding like it is now. You know what I mean? So they didn't grow up like depending on the government, right? And now we have people that are my age that have spent their whole life dependent on the government. It's really fucking hard to break that mentality for some people, and especially when you have these government schools telling generation after generation after generation that the government is their all-seeing savior to all problems, right? The violence problem, the monetary problem, security problem, economic. I mean, all of it is taught in schools that the government is the way to fix all that stuff. So we have to have, I mean, to start, we need like student run organizations on college campuses that fight the narrative. And I'll call somebody out right now who doesn't like me anymore, who used to be a good friend of mine, but doesn't like me anymore because he sees us as all kind of Nazi threats. But his name's Kevin Shaw from California. He is I guess what you call a mutualist or a left libertarian. And he actually fought the California collegiate system. He was handing out pocket constitutions and talking to people on campus. And they kicked him off campus and said that he has to be in free speech zones. He sued. He actually sued the state schools there and won because they're public education. I mean, it's a public place. You have to be subject to the same rules of the Constitution as every other public place. And he sued and won. We need more people like that. We need more people that are willing to fight. I just had a gentleman on the show with me recently, and Brandon, I always mess up his last name, Cassera, I think, who was arrested in conjunction with the plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer in Michigan.
Yeah. I've been trying to get him on my show.
Yeah, good interview. He's a good dude. I had him on the show, and he's another one of those guys. I'm like, you have all the ammunition right now to make what they did to you not okay. And when I say ammunition to my government spies that are listening to me, I don't mean actual ammunition. What I mean is they've wronged you, and you can prove that they've wronged you. If you do nothing, then they won't care. They won't care. Yeah. But if you take it to them and you sue them and you make a fucking spectacle of it, they're going to remember that the next time they go to do one of these bullshit plans, right? And so we need people like that. We need people that are willing to step up and fight the system. And it's going to be hard. And I just had Maj on the other night, Maj Toure, and he gave a speech at the national convention. It was one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard in my life.
Agreed. I was there.
Yeah.
It was bone chilling.
Yes, it was bone chilling. But he said, some of you are going to take a bag. Some of you guys are going to, you're going to take off. You're not made for this. You're not going to be part of this change because the truth be told is you're all talk. And he was serious, dude. Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with him. Like there's a lot of us that aren't willing to actually do the things that it takes to change the system. They'll pay lip service to it all day long, but we need people who are going to step out in front and be leaders. People that are going to be tough guys. People are going to tell the state, I'll fight you. Like plain and simple. Like if you fuck with me, if you fuck with my friends, if you fuck with my family, we're going to fight you. We're going to put resources into fighting you. We need more people like that because the more people rise up, the more people rise up. Right. Like when there's so many followers, right? There's so many fucking followers that won't do a damn thing until somebody steps up and does it for them.
Yeah.
So the more people we have stepping up and radicalizing the base of followers, the better. And I think that's what's going to take. And we got to do it on college campuses. We got to do it in media. We got to do it at our jobs, dude. We got to do it everywhere we possibly can. If you have what it takes if you have enough balls to stand up to any system of oppression, then you should be doing it. And I don't mean, Grandpa Gary down the street that says men can't be women. Okay. It's not fucking oppression, dude.
Yeah.
So, I think that's what's going to take. And a lot of that is uncomfortably pulling the veil off the eyes of people who I was just talking about, who think that oppression is Grandpa Gary down the street telling a man he can't be a woman. The real impression is these systems that have been set up by the government, the welfare state, gun legislation, the way that they've been able to delve into our healthcare over the last 2 years. I mean, it's government spying on their own citizens, like the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex. We're talking about some really bad shit, some very serious systems of oppression. And if you're not willing to fight those, then get the fuck out of the way and let somebody do it that will,
Completely agree. It's interesting. I do see some of the youth. God, I sound old saying that.
You're getting old, buddy.
Some of the youth out there who are being radicalized.
Yep.
And I love seeing that. Breaks my heart to know punk rock isn't punk rock anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's a few few out there.
There's always been a handful, but I mean,
well, that's the other thing too. I mean, we're talking about the culture war. Fuck, dude, if you play music, make your music about fucking the system again. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
if you have a show, make your show about fucking the system. Like, if you're a writer, write a fucking book about it. Like, this is what culture is, dude. This is what it is.
Where's the Ayn Rands? Where's
this is culture.
Johnny Rottens.
Yeah, exactly. This is the culture. Like, this is how you win the culture war. It's through popular culture. It's not through fucking hitting people with Murray Rothbard books or Mises books and saying you need to read this 7,000 page essay by Murray. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the way you change culture, because no one gives a shit about your books, dude. Like, I get it. There's a lot of people out there that Rothbard has radicalized. He radicalized me, dude. You know what I mean? But it was the culture. It was like I was hanging out at my buddy's house at a party house, and he had a poster of Ron Paul up on his wall. You know what I mean? And I'm like, who's that guy? He's like, oh, dude, he's dope. You'll see him. And then I was sitting in a bar with some friends, and Ron Paul was talking on the TV, and I was like, wow, dude. It was culture. I was brought to it by the culture, not by the fucking not by the politics. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't political philosophy that got me all excited to change the system. It was like, oh, my friends want to do this, and this cool guy over here wants to do this, and I like this guy, what he's talking about. That's great. And like so culture is important, and music's important, dude. Like, music is so fucking important to people, and you can change. I mean, we've seen musical movements like the grunge movement that absolutely changed the entire face of the United States, bro.
Yeah. Entirely.
Yeah. So you can be done, but you got to be willing to do it. I'm a little old for my band days these days too. But.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly love to still jam. In fact, I'm working on setting up a band with a friend of mine, but
nice.
That's just for shits and gigs, maybe play a bar or something, but it's not like I plan on going out hitting a new record deal or anything.
Yeah, we're not going touring anymore, buddy.
No. That day's long past. But it is important to me to hit these kids when they're young, when their brains are still mushy.
Right.
And obviously, I think that the best place to be able to radicalize the children is at home. So, appreciate any Liberty dad, because you're doing what needs to take place.
Yeah, I had my friend Patrick Smith on the show once, who's great, from Disenthrall Media. He's also a big part of the Anarcho-Pogo scene.
Nice.
And it was like, he's like anti-politics, like super anti-politics, anarchist, big Ayn Rand fan, named both his kids after Ayn Rand characters. I mean, he's
wow.
And I had him on the show, and I said, well, you don't like politics, so what do you think is the best way to change this fucked up system that we're living in right now? And he said, well, you got to start with yourself, dude. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude, you got to start with yourself, because think about it, man. If you're doing well and being successful, then your neighbors want to do well and be successful too. You know what I mean? And so, by proxy of doing the right thing and being successful and living your principles, you're changing your community, and your
Yeah.
community can change the county, and your county can change the state, and your state can change the country. And that's how it works. It's a movement grows like that, and it all starts with you. And so, that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. So, my kids, I like to impart wisdom on them. I don't like to be forceful with my political views on them. Um, but I do try my best to explain situations very well to them in a way that's understandable. And my kids, especially our two adopted kids, when they came to us, they were like, God's for white supremacists and Nazis, and he's not real. And libertarianism is white supremacy, and this has all been shit that they were taught by their mother.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just immediately start, because if you start, if I would to start attacking their mom's talking points, they would have been like, "Who's this fucking guy?" Right? And it was the same with church too. Like, we never forced them to go to church. We're very religious. But we're like, well, you guys can come anytime you want. They have a kids program, and there's juice and cookies. You know what I mean? Fast forward 2 years later, my son is asking us, "Hey, Dad, do you think I could get baptized? I'd really like to be baptized." You know what I mean?
That's epic.
Yeah, pretty cool. And it was like totally unprovoked, entirely unprovoked. I never forced him. I never forced him to read the Bible, none of that stuff. And he did it all on his own. And our girl too. And the same with the political philosophy, like one time, so our two adopted kids, we had to put them in public school. It was like kind of required. So we got them into a community choice charter school, which is better.
Yeah.
And but they came home one day and he's like, "Dad, we're talking about the Civil War." And I'm like, "Sit down." And he's like, "It's all about slavery, right?" And I'm like, "Well, let's just pump the brakes there a little bit."
Yeah.
When exactly did the North release their slaves, son? He's all, "Well, this looks like it was after the war started." I'm like, "Yeah, probably because they needed a little extra support for the war, wouldn't you think, son?" He's like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, And I helped him get to the conclusion that, that history is written by the victors, and you're not always going to get the real thing from the history books, and it's better to research that stuff on your own through, academic papers." And now he reads all that stuff on his own, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, taxes are theft." Oh, he wears a taxationist theft hat and all this stuff. I did not force any of this on him. You know what I mean? But that was the really important part too, was that I didn't force it on him, because we know as grown adults who used to be children, right? That there's a long point in your life where you will be rebellious to any authority at some point. And when your mom or your dad, or what, I guess some of you fuckers probably had a dad. I didn't have a dad, but anyways, when your mom, when she tells you you're not allowed to do this, you're like, "The fuck, I'm not. I'm definitely going to do that now." You know what I mean? And so for me with my kids, I didn't want to be like, "You have to believe this." I wanted to be like, "Oh, I want you guys to believe whatever you think is right, but let me just show you some data here. Let's talk about it. Let's have a good conversation about it. And then when you leave, you make up your own assumptions. I want you guys to make your own conclusion on this situation." And that's really worked well for our children, man. I mean, really very easily. Of course, we're peaceful parents. We don't hit our kids and all that dumb shit either. But we do have very real conversations with them about history and politics. And my son will come to me and be like, "Dad, what's this omnibus thing that's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, son, let's talk about it." We'll never be able to get through it all, because they can't even get through it all, but we can talk about what it means for us and our economy and all that stuff. And I'll tell you what I think about it, and you can take it or leave it, And he's like, "Man, this is a lot of bullshit, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah, I think that's really important with your children, man, especially as free thinking libertarian people. And we don't try to force feed our children this stuff, man. It's a thin line, dude, for sure.
Yeah. There's got to be some way to be able to scale that, because obviously, like I said, the best place to do this is within the home. And I mean, fighting for a home, considering the standard home is now broken. Like we lead the world in single parent homes,
which was all by design, by the way.
yeah,
Entirely
exactly.
by
It's
design, yeah.
like 23% of homes are single
We call
parent
them
households.
fatherless communities now.
Yeah, which is so disturbing. So obviously that's the best place, and with the nature of rebellion, being a teenager, I think we have a perfect opportunity, which is why I think I'm still white pilled on this liberty movement in general, not just the Libertarian Party, but everybody fighting for liberty, because you can't be popular culture and counterculture at the same time.
Right.
And popular culture is all the woke ideology, the authoritarianism.
They made everybody retarded with the Kardashians, dude, and then they just did whatever the fuck they wanted to after that. I mean, that's really.
I think
what
it
happened.
started with the Real World.
Yeah, that too. It was definitely the. I say Kardashians, but yeah, just any kind of reality TV. They made everyone retarded with the reality TV, and ever since then they've been able to just basically do whatever the fuck they want, and everybody's just like, yeah, dude, if I listen to the government, I'm gonna have a mansion on Rodeo, and yeah, that's how it's gonna work. And it's like, nah, dude, that's not how it fucking works, you dumb shit.
No, not at all. Literally just crack a history book written before 1980.
Yeah.
And then you'll see exactly how or what following the government, exactly gets you in the end. Leads to a band of people trying to kill sparrows because Dear Leader says so.
Exactly, dude. And Dear Leader, by the way, doesn't have a butthole.
Yeah.
He does not poop. He just expends all of his energy. That he's pretty savage like that.
So we'll start wrapping up because I don't want to keep you too long.
It's good. I gotta go get like 100 kids to sleep, so I appreciate it.
No problem. So I do want to kind of end on this and just talk about the nature of rebellion, kind of things that we could actually do, because as much as trying to put us into a corner of only speaking about liberty, of course, I kind of wanted to go the direction of really focusing on solutions.
Sure.
And most people, they're not gonna do this for a living, but there are things that people can do. And so I kind of just wanted to ask your perspective, some recommendations, or even just like some ideas that you've had in the past. Like what can people actually do to start just doing this in their daily life?
Well, I think it really comes down to how brave you are, right? I mean, you could take as far as you want to take it, but there's people with jobs and kids and taxes and all this shit that they have to focus on, or they'll lose everything. And but my good friend Dan Berman, Dan Taxation is Theft
Love
Berman.
Dan.
Yeah, Dan's a good dude. I know him and the Mises guys don't get along so well recently. I don't know what that's about, but Dan actually gives classes on how to not pay taxes legitimately. I truly, at the end of the day, I fucking love the agorist thought, right? Like I really do. Like, I think the more you can opt out, the better, and the more people we could get to opt out, the better, of their systems that are magically made up that really they had no basis in law for whatsoever. But I can't do that, dude. You know what I mean? Like that's the sad part, is like I can't be an agorist, dude. Like because I'll lose everything. I'll lose my kids and my home and my life as I know it. So for me, it's all about the educational platform, right? Like it's all about trying to wake more people up to the system, and I think I've done pretty good at that over the last couple of years. I've had as they say in sales, like touching people, right? Like probably 100,000 or more people. And that's a lot of people to get on board with these ideas, but it all really comes down to what you're good at, right? Like I think that's something also libertarians don't take into account, that like we're not good at everything, dude. You know what I mean? We're not all going to be great commentators, and we're not all going to be great comedians, and we're not all going to be great musicians, and we're not all going to be find your niche, man. And fucking use it, dude. Like find what you're good at and use it, and to wake as many people up as you can, because we need people awake, not woke, right? We need people awake to the injustice of the federal government, especially. It's such an oppressive tool that was built for nothing else but oppression. And And the more we can chip away at those systems, the better. How do we do it? You just find what you're good at, man, and let it kill you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I can totally agree with that. It's just interesting. I see this pacification of men, and that's kind of a big deal to me.
You mean
It's
pussification of men?
pussification.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, obviously with the pussification of men, you have less of a chance of any sort of rebellion actually taking place.
Right.
Now, we can't fight uh the the monopoly of force. They know how to answer back to that.
Right.
But an armed rebellion, as romantic as it romanticized as it has been, is not what anyone wants. And there's still a peaceful way to go about it, and that's really how we're gonna have to be able to do it, because they know how to answer to violence.
Oh, sure.
They
It's the
they've
only
got the
thing. It's the only
tools
thing they're
for it.
good at, dude. That's it.
Exactly.
They're very good at violence.
Exactly. So this is just something that's important to me, obviously,
No.
and important to a lot of people, as far as I can see.
Well, and I think national divorce is a really important topic too. Um, I think that Overton window has slightly been shifting too.
Yeah,
That it was never a conversation before, and now over the last couple of years, it's a national conversation that we've heard like federal politicians talk about. Even you know what I mean?
yeah,
We got federal politicians trying to put forth bills to end the IRS. I mean, the Overton window is shifting, dude. And
it
that's a good
is.
thing. That's a really good thing. And it takes crazy motherfuckers like Ted Kaczynski
Yeah.
to shift the Overton window. That's the truth. Like I'm not praising Ted for what he did.
No.
But man, his fucking manifesto was spot on about technology and all kinds of shit, right? And he was just crazy enough that some people were like, I want to check that manifesto out and give it a read. And people read it and were like, wow, holy shit, it's really happening. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it takes a crazy motherfucker. It takes leaders to move that Overton window. It takes people that are willing to stand up and say unpopular things. And I think that, I hold hope that we'll get there eventually, and I will live in the great country of Iowa. Maybe they'll call it, I don't know, Junior Siberia or something. It's fucking cold here, but
Yeah, it's been freezing over here lately too.
where do you live at, man?
Utah.
Oh yeah, you guys get
Yep.
you get kind of cold. You don't get cold like we get cold, but you get pretty cold.
Yeah, I mean, right along the Wasatch Front,
Yeah.
not so much. Anywhere else, it gets pretty cold.
Like
Up-
negative,
up-
like -40, like we just had.
some parts
Really?
of Utah, yeah.
Holy shit, I
up in the
didn't know. I got
mountain
that.
areas.
I guess
So,
in the mountains that makes sense. I'm just so used to that mountain range specifically in Nevada,
yeah.
because I grew up in the East Bay area, California,
Okay.
and we used to go to Tahoe all the time, and that was like my snowy, cold place. But really,
Yeah.
it'd be like 30 degrees. And it would dump like fucking 5 feet of snow while you were in your hotel sleeping. And then you wake up and it'd be like 60 degrees outside and everyone's snowboarding in t-shirts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Tahoe's a special, weird place. And so I
It is.
think I always conflate like Tahoe with Utah in that area. You know what I mean? And that's probably why I'm like, it can't get that cold there. Right?
It gets pretty cold, but you get closer to Salt Lake, you got all that concrete and
Sure.
everything, and whatever.
Yeah, we just had 2 days where with the wind chill it was -40, bro. It was fucked up. It was brutal, dude. Like really shitty. And then 2 days later it was 55 degrees. It was like 100-degree shift, bro. It was fucked up.
Man, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up here. There's one last quick question I want to ask you. I like asking everybody because everyone has a different answer, and it's one of the cornerstones of something I like to learn, because this exploring all of this, being in the podcast community and getting the guests that I do. But in your opinion, why does liberty matter in the first place?
Well, fuck, dude. I don't know, man. It's just such a personal. It's going to be a personal answer. It should always be a personal answer for anybody who answers that. I want my kids to grow up in a freer society than I did. I want my kids to not feel like at any time the government could come and take their home. their means of self-defense, their hard-earned money. For me, it's a very personal thing, dude. Like I have grandkids, and I don't want I grew up in a really oppressive society that I think a lot of people don't even understand the amount of oppression that they face every day. When the county can come to your house and give you a $150 a day fine for not cutting your grass, you don't live in a free country, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If I don't want to cut my fucking grass, I shouldn't have to cut my grass. And I do want to cut my grass. I actually enjoy it. It's very fun for me. If you're a dad, you understand standing on your back deck, staring at your freshly cut grass for like 2 hours after you do it, proud of yourself. It's the little things, right? But I just want my kids, man. Like I really want my kids to live in a happier, freer society that is less oppressive. And if I have to be the guy that takes all the arrows and I don't know, the government hates but I'm able to move the window and make it a little better for them, then that's important to me. And that should be important to everybody else too. You know what I mean? And I hate being the guy that's like, hey, this should be important to you. But man, if you're going to have children, you probably want your children to live a freer life than you did. And so you should, we sacrifice for our kids. You should sacrifice for your kids any way you can.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Well, that's a great answer. Absolutely love it. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, what you have coming up?
Yeah, of course, man. Of course, follow me on my newly returned Twitter account that has been gone for over a year. They finally gave it back to me at Joshua at large, all one word. And then the show, of course, is youtube.com/Fight the Despots, DSPOTS. That's where we find Break the Cycle. We do it typically Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7:30 corn time, 7:30 p.m. Corn time, as we like to call it here in Iowa, but that's really the central time. And great guests coming up, and I hope you guys will come and check us out. And definitely, if you followed me here from Twitter, please subscribe to Jacob's show and check that out. It's got a great show here, and I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. You'd been kind of like my white whale for a little bit, trying to nail you down a little bit.
I'm a hard one, man. I know. I get it. I am a busy motherfucker, dude.
Quick thing from Reed. Tell Josh to answer my text.
Jesus, Reed. Hold on. Let's see what he has to say.
So with that, thank you, everyone.
I don't even have a text from Reed. Shut up, Reed.
So thank you, everyone, for making it to this point in the episode. Hit that like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all the things. Helps the channel grow, and we need as much liberty conversation as possible. Let's just dogpile. Let's allow too much content to have them to be able to censor. Just dogpile, to keep putting it out there. Thanks again, Josh, for coming on, hang out for just a minute while we get this all wrapped up and the recording's done. And everyone else, until next time,